This is Wholesaling Houses Elite, the no fluff and BS podcast with tips and tricks to help you become an elite wholesaler. Our guest will spill the beans on what it takes to be the best.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we get started on today's podcast, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor. It's YellowLetterHQ.com. Now, I'm going to say it very slow so you can write it down. YellowLetterHQ.com. If you're doing direct mail, this is a no-brainer. They're number one in customer service. They get their letters out absolutely fast. And I personally know the guy Todd over there, and he's awesome. So if you're doing direct mail and you want innovative postcards and mailers that work, make sure you go visit YellowLetterHQ.com. and enjoy this podcast. All right, Wholesaling Houses Elite member, this is Maxwell. Welcome to another podcast, and I have a special guest, real special guest. Many of you probably already know this guy, but Tom Kroll, welcome to Wholesaling Houses Elite. How you doing, sir?
Bam! It's an honor to be on this great show with you. I love it. Look at this. You're the best looking host I've ever been interviewed by.
Second best.
All right, second. Is this a GQ advertisement, or this is good stuff, man? I love it.
Maybe they'll look us up and see what we can get on a magazine cover or something.
I love it. Not me, but yeah, you definitely.
So how are things going with you, man? You're in Florida. Weather's beautiful.
Yeah, palm trees. I love it. It's we live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Julie and I and our 5 L's: Logan, Lacey, Lily, Lucas, and Levi, our newborn, and Lucy, our dog, of course.
So man. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're doing well. I love Florida. I'll tell you this, I didn't like it at first, but once you're down here and you get used to this heat, there is no. That's it. So it's a great adventure.
I love it. I love the area you're in. I love Florida, and I think you're in a great market. But a lot of people that just turned on this podcast, or if you're watching from video, they recognize your voice immediately. You got that signature, bam, you're the man. So you run a popular company and a training company and education company, and you also have, I think, one of the best podcasts in the wholesaling category, one that I listened to when I got started, Wholesaling Inc. So before we get to Wholesaling Inc., tell us kind of like your adventure, how you got started in real estate and where that came from, because I love to know where a lot of the successful people get started and how they found out about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I'll give you the quick story is, first of all, I love wholesaling. I really, truly love it. I think it is the best way to make a fortune in a short amount of time, especially if you have no experience and no money, and especially if you're starting like I did at rock bottom. Rock bottom is a strong foundation. It is the strongest of foundations in all areas of life, your faith, your personal belief system and worldview, and certainly finances. I love rock bottom. Those are my favorite people because that's where I was at. I was a lawn care guy, brother. I was a lawn care guy, and I do not have the body type to be a lawn care guy in South Florida. I will tell you that right now. No way, Jose. So I was at that time selling lawn care, and I hadn't sold any at all for a year. The managers came in and they said, "Tom, you're out of here." I got home. I was totally broke. My salary was, I think, $55,000 a year at the time, which I thought was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
That's just interesting. And I can tell you a quick story about that one in a second here. But I got home, and Julie, my wife, is super supportive. I've been fired several times, so she was not anything new to her. This is now probably my 5th or 6th time of being fired from a job. Not a good employee at all. Didn't make a single sale. And I called my brother Todd Toback. Todd Toback is my stepbrother, for anybody who's wondering why Tom Kroll and Todd Toback have different last names. So I called Todd. He said, "You're crazy if you don't get into wholesaling real estate right now." I cried and whined and moaned the whole time. I said, San Diego, where Todd lives, is a big city, lots of homes. They're more expensive. I live in quiet Port St. Lucie. There are fewer homes. They're less expensive. It's never going to work. And he just pulled me kicking and screaming the whole way. He was my mentor. Thank God for that. And he taught me how to do deals. I did my first deal. It was Dorothy Cannon on Bayshore Boulevard, who everybody, I'm sure you do too, remembers their first deal. It was a gnarly There was a real estate agent in there. I had no idea at all what I was doing. I told the homeowner, I said, Dorothy, I said, listen, are you really going to sell with a real estate agent? They make more money if they sell the house for more money. So he's going to take forever. I said, I could buy the house right now. And so she asked him to leave, which I can't believe. But ever since then, it's been awesome. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals since then. And the business now at this point runs 110% completely without me, with only 1.5, 2.5 people, depending on how you count that. And I love it. Wholesaling is the best way to make a fortune in any industry in the shortest amount of time in this country, hands down.
I couldn't agree anymore. No matter how successful I get and how big the real estate purchases I start to buy in my own portfolio, I will never turn off the ATM machine I call wholesaling. It just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Right. I absolutely agree. It's and on that, I mean, it's what I love about it. I always say wholesaling is easy. People are complicated. Wholesaling, for any of your audience, I'm sure they all know, but to me, the art of wholesaling is really very simple. It's the art of consistently finding discounted properties. That is really it. If you want to be super ultra wealthy and in the 1% within a very short amount of time, just get really good at finding houses for 40, 50, and 60 cents on the dollar. And I don't really care what you do with them after that. You will be a millionaire. Absolutely.
I agree 100%. And I tell people all the time, I said, you really got to find a passion because it's easy, but you can have tough days. And if you don't withstand those tough days, then you're gonna jump onto something else. So like how you are enthused about wholesaling, I am every day. It's hard for me to get a good night's sleep because I just can't wait to get up in the morning and see what's going on with everything. But also have the complete opposite end of the spectrum where in the last 2 weeks I've worked 2 days. Right. So it's the availability to be able to do what you want, and when you're starting out, you're going to get there. Are you just working in Florida, or are you doing deals across the country as well?
Just Florida. That's it. Just my little tiny town of Port St. Lucie. I mean, we do go a little further north to Vero, and sometimes we do a deal in there's Stewart and West Palm Beach below me. So occasionally we'll do a deal there, but 99.5% of the deals we do, or I should say maybe 90% of the deals are all in Port St. Lucie.
And that's amazing because you and I have the similar revenue side as far as what we take in. And I'm in a very small town. You're in a very small town. And I think the positive side to that is we become so laser focused on my market. There's 350,000 people in my market. Right. I understand this market, the ins and outs. I know from street to street what a house should be worth or what I should pay for it. And I think allowing us to be laser focused on our market and understand it 100% gives us the advantage versus working in 3 or 4 or 5 markets. Now, I'm not saying I will never expand, but I understand my market and that will always be my bread and butter. Even doesn't even matter how small it is.
I totally agree on every level. So I think the number one reason that new wholesalers fail is, first of all, education. I think that's the number one reason new wholesalers fail is because of education. Or what I should say is misplaced education. When I learned, I got clear instruction, I took action, I got results, and then those results were my education. I think that the clear instruction and action to a result, the guys and girls who get the most results win. But I think the second reason, what really stalls out a lot of new wholesalers when they're just getting started, is they'll say they intentionally are not laser focused. So I believe that you need to, number one, be totally intentional about acquiring properties one way, about having one way to acquire, one way to find, one way to buy, one way to sell. Because the reality is when you do that, you can automate that process. A simple process is easy to delegate. People use all these, fancy words, automation, scale, systems, and I don't know what any of that is, right? Those are all fancy SAT words, and I got a 990 on my SAT, so I am not that guy. Here's what I know. If I can create a simple process that's easy to follow and it produces a consistent result, I can delegate that to somebody else and go to Fiji for like 6 months.
There you go.
So I think that that's what they use. You'll hear a new wholesaler, and you'll say, any new wholesaler who's struggling, you ask them, say, how are you finding properties? And they'll say, well, hand wrote a few cards, made some calls on Craigslist, talked to a few agents, put out some bandit signs, and I put out a Facebook ads. And you'll find this in all areas. And when you talk to a wholesaler who's making 80, 100, $150,000 a month consistently, how do you find your deals? One way. I do this one thing and I do it better than anybody. So when it comes to geography, when it comes to finding deals, acquiring deals, and disposition of deals, singular and focus. I mean, Gary Keller, the one thing, Mike McCallum plan. These are the answers for the men and women who came before. Be a leader, not a bleeder. Just follow those guys and girls, and they'll tell you exactly how to do it. And yeah, I totally agree that one geography is key. And again, I agree with you. Down the line, if you want to grow your territory,
you can, because now you have a system that you can just plop into another market. And I agree. I tell people that come across my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, and I say, become good at one thing. I became good at probating pretty much when I first started, because I reverse engineered my first deal, which I luckily ran across driving for dollars, and found out something about it. And I was forced to learn probate in order to get the deal closed. And I said, well, wait, this was a little more difficult than I've heard on podcasts. Maybe if I learn this to the T, I will have less competition within this marketing strategy. And I was right. And I was able to scale. And here we are now today. So it's good. It's good that we have the same mindset when it comes to the business, and I love that. Love it a lot.
Very cool. Yeah.
So now moving forward, your business is completely automated. When did you decide? This is for me. I don't even know if this is really for my audience. When did you decide to say, "Hey, I want to start a podcast about wholesaling"? How did that come up?
Well, I can tell you what really happened was I was doing deals. And I started to have people come up to me locally in my town and say, "Hey, Tom, I see that you're doing these deals. How are you doing them?" So I started coaching, and I started just taking on local students for like $300 or whatever. And I would say, show you how to do it. I learned a lot about what it takes to get a person a result. Mm-hmm. I started this thing by developing this whole course, and completely a failure. I learned a lot of rules about what gets people to actually take action, how to implement a system of taking them out of, I tell my students now, I don't care what you think you know about wholesaling. I don't care what you want to know about wholesaling. I'm Mr. Miyagi and you're Danielson. That's how my big brother taught me, and that's how you're going to learn. I don't really care about your personal interpretation of the information. I'm going to tell you what to do. Make sure it's legal, ethical, and moral, and then you're going to do it. And that's the extent of our relationship, because we have a proven process that works. Do that. And I was instructing people and learning how to do this. I took a course. Oh, man, I can't even think of the name of it now, but I took some internet course, and I met a guy, Darren Bentley, who's now a good friend of mine and works with me. And he said, "Tom, you got to go out and do this on a podcast." And I did that, and it was a game changer. So the podcast is doing phenomenally well. Yeah. I just looked at it. Actually, I got a text today. We're right in between Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins. And then I got a text yesterday, and it was, I just went above Rich Dad Poor Dad. So it's funny because I am now blessed to be able to say I'm friends with Robert Kiyosaki, which is like completely blows my mind. Yeah. And I'm going to send him a little note.
Absolutely, as you should. As you should.
It's good stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. We just yesterday received the Inc. 5000 award, which was awesome. So that came in the mail. We're going to actually do an announcement about that today. So that was crazy, and it's just great. And I always tell all of my students, it's the bottom line is, yes, it's discipline to coach, it's discipline and it's passion, but it's really one thing I learned from Robert Kiyosaki is its purpose. Mm-hmm. And if you understand who you are, and this goes back to your audience, to anybody who's getting started with wholesaling, one thing I learned from Robert Kiyosaki is, yes, drive and discipline and passion are good, but they are small tanks of gas compared to purpose. If you are on purpose, you are going to dominate. You are going to blast through every mountain. You are going to just completely purpose is genuine, and people see it. And when you're on purpose, you have the most power. And it's something I learned from Robert, and it's the most true thing. And I think for me, once I started getting those testimonial videos, I just said, man, these people's lives are changing. people ringing victory bells. I love it.
I love it. I love when people post their checks and say, you know what, this is going to change my life. And that's why I have that motto, you're only one deal away, because the first deal I ever made changed my life and it will never be the same again. So that first deal, it's not only a ton of education going through it, but that first check is like, okay, I now have this in my hand. It's now a repeatable process.
Absolutely. That first deal is the best deal. I mean, I'll never forget mine. And it's, it's one thing to hear Max say, oh, it's real. But who's Max, right?
Yeah.
Who's Tom? These are just people on the internet, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you. When you get that first check, it's like, yeah, Max and Tom are great, right? But now I've got a check. Now I believe, now I understand who I am, that I'm powerful, that I can go out and do this, and it works, and it's real, and it's true, and your whole attitude changes. So it's key. It's key.
So that's awesome, man. But let's get into some meat and potatoes, because our audience is really about the same. You got a lot of new people just finding out about wholesaling, and they're like, I want to do this. I've seen some success stories. One of the big topics that comes up in my Facebook group all the time, Wholesaling Houses Elite, is when they're on the phone, they're taking phone calls. How do you tell your students to try to structure a phone call so that they get the result that they want? Because that's a big topic now these days, is people are now getting on the phone and calling leads and getting the answers yes and no right away. So
here's what I'm going to say. I am a total go-giver. So if you're driving the car right now and you're watching this video and driving the car, that's even more dangerous. You should pull over. But I'm going to give away everything. So here is what I know for a fact will work when you're on the phone. First of all, let's just get on the phone. Right. So a lot of people say, because getting on the phone is uncomfortable, especially if you're new, because you don't know what you're saying. You have to be willing to look foolish. So the first obstacle is, let's just get on the phone in the first place. And a lot of people will say that, I don't feel like it. I intend to, but then I can't. And they'll say that they'll speak over themselves, that they have a lack of motivation. Mm-hmm. I'm here to tell you right now, there is no such thing as a lack of motivation. This is a made-up term. It doesn't exist. I don't know where it came from, but it's not real. There is no lack of motivation. There is only the wanting of one thing more than another. So it's only the wanting of, I want to sit on the couch rather than get on the phone, or I want to do something else. If you can sit quietly in the morning when you wake up and try to identify, what is it that I actually want that's holding me back, that I want more than doing what I need to do to get a result, that is a great place to start, to just realizing how important it is to get on the phone. Because the only time, if I write you guys a check who are listening and I own your business, the only time I make money is when you're on the phone and in front of a seller. That's it. So if you're not on the phone, I don't care what you're doing, you're not making money. So that's number one. So let's just get on the phone. The other thing about the phone is this, and I want to be clear here. I'm talking now about outbound marketing. So when you send out your marketing, your Facebook ad, your direct mail, whatever it is, your bandit sign, you're going to have incoming calls. Dan Kennedy, if you haven't read any of his books, the No BS books, I would suggest read all of them. They're key books. But here are a few key ideas to keep in mind. First of all, number one, if you're just starting out, meet with every seller. I don't care if they have equity, and equity means that they owe less money than what you want to pay for the house. If they have equity, go and meet with them. I don't care if they're motivated or not. Let's talk about motivated. A lot of new wholesalers, what they're waiting for is somebody to say how motivated they are on their phone. Don't do that. What I want you to do is I want you to adopt a philosophy that every single person who calls you off of a 35 cents postcard is motivated. So this is so key, guys. If you are just starting out in this business, I really want you to hear me. Assume motivation. Assume motivation. Everyone who calls into my marketing line is motivated unless proven otherwise. So what I'm doing the whole time is I am pulling away on the phone. And this is another tactic. This is rule number 3. Pull away. A lot of times what you have to do is to get into the right state of mind is, Max or I could spend 5 months with you giving you an answer to every single seller's objection, right? But instead of doing all that, that's frustrating and difficult. Instead of doing that, just have the mindset that you're on a date, or that you're super confident, that you have $500,000 in your pocket and there's 1,000 houses for sale, and be pulling away the whole time. Get the seller to convince you that you should give them your money rather than you convincing the seller that they should give you their house. If you can understand this simple concept, here's a great way to understand it and implement it. Every question is an objection. I do not care what the homeowner asks you on that phone. If they ask you a question, it's an objection. Now, there's two ways that you can answer an objection, a question. You can lean in and chase them, right? And what happens if you're trying to catch a dog? If you chase a dog, it runs away. Instead, you run away from the dog and the dog will chase you. That's how you're going to know. That's how you're going to become a deal creator, a deal finder, instead of having a frustrating life as a deal creator. That you only want the ones that follow you. So when they ask you a question, here's what I'll say. Are you a real estate agent? The seller will say, are you a real estate agent? No, I'm not a real estate agent. Is that going to prevent me from buying your house today? And that's it. And then be quiet. Always be pulling away. You have $500,000 in your pocket and there's 1,000 houses for sale. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to convince people. It's a date. When you lean in and you're telling that guy or that girl how great you are, you look like an idiot. Stop doing that. Big time, right? So and I've been married for like almost 20 years now, so I haven't been on a date, but I know it's not cool to do that.
It wasn't cool 20 years ago. It's not cool now. Don't worry, Tom.
There we go. Now I know. But that's the idea, is always be pulling away. Meet with everybody. Always be pulling away. The other thing I want to say is keep it simple. Assume motivation. So as soon as there's some reason that they have equity and you're going to go meet with them, there's only 5 ways that every single phone call should end. 5 ways. So everybody should write this down. Here's the reason, guys. Everything that you do is a process, and it's going to be implemented by somebody that you delegate to. So if you become a real estate expert, then you're not going to be able to scale your business. You'll be able to do a few deals and make some money, but you're going to be completely tied into a job. Mm-hmm. You want a business. A business is a servant that serves you. It runs without you. So here's the key. If you develop everything into a process, every single phone call, I don't care what the situation is, only ends one of 5 ways. Either they are super motivated, so you are going to send a mobile notary with a contract if they're not local, or you're going to get in your car and go and see them immediately. That's number 1. So number 1 is it's a hot deal. It's somebody who has not proven that they're not motivated, and they're not unmotivated, and they have equity. You go and see them. That's number 1. Number 2, it's voicemail. What do we do on a voicemail? We leave them a voicemail. We schedule a call back in an hour, and we send them a text message. Hey, this is Tom. I was calling about the house. Number 3, taking off of your mail list. They don't want to talk to you. I'm not interested in selling my home. They're cursing. That is somebody who gets taken out of your database. That's number 3. Number 4 is somebody who they're not hot. But they're kind of like standoffish and they're cold. So it's going to be a category I would describe as follow-up. And follow-up just simply means that it's somebody who they're not ready today for a number of reasons, and you're going to follow up with them in your database. They stay in your database.
But they did call you.
But they did call you. So what I'm going to say is, on this, initially, when you're first starting out, I would go and see that person anyway, even if they're not ready. And then when you become more of an expert, you go from there. Last one is they are a cash buyer. So very often when you send out direct mail or whatever it is that you're doing, you get somebody who's actually an agent who works with investors or whatever, put them in your cash. That's it, 5 ways. And I'm going to tell you another trick that's going to make all of you guys money right now, because that's why you get a mentor. It's not for friendship and camaraderie, in my case, to be in the tribe. That's all great. I have an obligation to you to make you money. That's Correct. Why people pay me their hard-earned money, is to make them money, right? So I take that obligation very seriously. So let me tell you this. We just pulled this report. In the past 90 days, besides all the deals we do, we did 7 additional deals in the past 90 days that came from one source, which is this. I want you right now, guys, to adopt a philosophy. Everyone gets an offer. Everyone gets an offer. I do not care what the reason is that they're telling you they're not interested in selling you their home. I did 7 deals in the past 90 days. My average deal is just over $15,000. I think it's $15,200. That's over $100,000 in the past quarter, just by when we end the call. We just send them an offer in the mail. And mail is better than email if anybody's asking or wondering that question. Send a written offer. It creates an event. It's a marketing piece. It causes people to yell at you, counter offer, or accept. And you'll be surprised. When I was told this by Todd Toback now 4 years ago, I told him it was crazy. I didn't have the money. He said use click to mail to send it to this company in Texas. And I said, this isn't going to work. And I got a deal with this guy, Paul, on Salaz. I couldn't believe it. He wanted $80,000 for the house. I was only willing to pay $24,000. I sent him the offer for $24,000. And he called back like 3 months. Oh, by the way, the offer has to be time sensitive, short amount of time, only about a week. Make sure it expires. Called me back and he said, well, I know it expired. Can you still buy the house at $24,000? And I said, I don't think I could do it at $24,000, but let me come over. And I got it for $14,000. and I sold it for a huge margin. So
Things change in people between the time you have that phone call and they might be reluctant to take your offer, and then you send them that mail piece or that offer, and then things change and they are actually in a crunch and you're their best option right then and there. You didn't force them to take the offer. You just said, here's your option. I'm your guy at this number. If not, good luck to you.
I love it. And it's so true. This practice, what happens is you don't become an expert. Everybody who does this and they say, well, I'm going to learn how to now do seller financing because the people who have equity, but they don't have equity, but they're motivated. I'm going to learn how to do this and I'm going to learn how to do that so I have more in my arsenal. What you're doing is creating a job. Instead, create a process that you can delegate. Put a cap on your financial aspirations. Once you're making $50, $80, $120,000 a month, I promise you, if you're not happy in your life making $100,000 a month, you are not going to be one smidgen happier at $350,000 a month. So create a simple process. Do not become a real estate expert. Stop making decisions. And one thing, too, that comes up is this whole idea of valuations, right? Because people will say, well, how can I send an offer if I don't know how to make it, if I can't come up with a number? And I used to have this argument, Max, with Todd. I cannot even tell you. I would be like, Todd, I don't know how much to pay for the house. It would be like, you blankety, blankety, blank, blank, blank. And he would hang up on me and I would call him back and I'd be like, Todd, stop hanging up on me. So here's the bottom line. Here's a great rule of thumb. Guess. Go as low as possible. Here's a great feeling. When you have in the pit of your stomach that you're so low that it's embarrassing to say that number to the seller, that's when you're right about at the right number. Probably you have to go a little bit lower. But when don't sit there and tell me you don't know how to come up with the price of a house when there's thousands and thousands and thousands of websites that tell you how much it's worth. It's ridiculous. If you take more than 30 seconds to come up with your price, first of all, let's just explore what happens if you're wrong. If you're wrong, you're just going to make more money if you're too low, right? If you are wrong and you're too high, you can cancel the contract and say, hey, I made an honest mistake. I thought it was X. It's Y. I'm canceling the contract. By the way, the best way to negotiate a contract is to cancel it. As soon as you cancel it, the seller, the first question they ask is, well, what can you do it for? And then you just adjust to the right number. And you see these new wholesalers and they have no real estate experience at all. And I'll get on the phone with them and I'll say, well, did you send an offer? And they'll say, well, I couldn't come up with a price. And I'll say, well, why not? And they'll say, well, I didn't ARV. I'm like, who cares what you think ARV is? It's the most ridiculous conversation. So here's what I'm going to tell you right now. If you guys want to make a lot of money today, not tomorrow, I'm talking about right now. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to make a lot of money today, which is what the whole point of all of this is I want you to write down ARV, the acronym. It doesn't stand for after repair value. It stands for assumptions, reduce victories. Assumptions reduce victories. That's what ARV is. Nobody cares what you think. The seller, the buyer, the bank, the title company, nobody gives two rats behind what you think ARV is. Nobody even cares what you think the current market value is.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Stop wasting time trying to find out silly numbers that you know nothing about, that nobody's going to believe you on anyway. It's ridiculous. Go low. How low? When you feel uncomfortable, you're low enough. That's when you feel silly saying the number, that's your valuation method right there.
And if you're putting out so many offers, eventually somebody's going to bite. It's like putting fishing line. If you got 10 rods at the lake, you're more likely to catch them than I got one rod.
Absolutely. And the more properties you put under contract and you're wrong, that's how you're learning.
Correct.
Here's what I'm going to tell you about valuations. You can legitimately get 25 people, 5 landlords, 5 rehabbers, 5 appraisers, 5 title companies, and 5 real estate agents to give you just say, what is the current market value of 123 Main Street and what is the ARV value? You will legitimately get 25 offers that are so far apart you won't even think they're talking about the same house.
Yep.
So if these people can't do it, you sure as heck can't do it. Don't even try it. It's all about instruction, action, results, and then the outcome. And the guys and girls who get the most results make the most money. The guys and girls who get the most results make the most money. That's it.
100%. I mean, you're dropping some jewels right now. That's why I'm just sitting back and I'm just letting you speak because the audience needs to hear these type of things because you've coached enough people. You've seen this enough time. People get caught up on the small things in this business when it shouldn't be that way. And then they end up not doing it and moving on to the next thing because of a simple thing like ARV.
Well, I will say this. The real problem underneath all of that is they like the blanket. It's education. And one thing that I teach in my tribe is progress, not perfection, massive imperfect action, speed of implementation, sense of urgency, but progress, not perfection is a big one. This warm blanket, this warm, cozy, heavy, wet blanket of education, it makes you feel, it tricks you. It makes you feel like you're moving forward. What are you doing today? Oh, I'm taking notes. I'm reading this book I'm thinking about getting the real estate. Let me just tell you guys right now, if you're in that stage, you don't know who you are. You don't know how powerful you are. You are a man or woman of God. You are created in our Maker's image. You can do this. You can move a mountain,
100%.
but you have to understand who you are. You can't be going in and acting like here's the reality. If you really want to get a deal today, I want you to pretend that you got bit by a venomous snake and doing a deal is the anti-venom, right? Because the reality is, don't tell me if there is no such thing as time management. It doesn't exist. There's only priority management. You guys should write that down. Yeah, brother, there's no time management. There is only priority management. You have got to understand who you are, and then you've got to go out and you got to face your fears. You got to seek discomfort, and you got to take massive, imperfect action. You got to make mistakes, and you have to do it knowing that, hey, my children are kidnapped, and the only way to get them back, the ransom is I got to do a deal. Because the reality is, if you believe that, you wouldn't be held back by lack of funds in the bank or not knowing how, or I can't go to see the seller because I don't have a contract. If your kids were kidnapped, you'd put it on a piece of paper and you would just write it, a napkin. And what would the title company say? They say, well, we can't use that. Use this contract. That's it. What is the big thing that you're so afraid of? Perfect. I mean, you got to just go out there and just do it. And when you do, like Max said, when you do your first deal and your 10th deal and 100th and all these deals and you're in the top 1% of earners in the country and you start to now cherry pick properties off your pipeline for rentals and free and clear. I mean, you guys, when you know the rules of life and you understand who you are and whose image you're made in and how powerful you are and that you're not just a cog in this wheel, that you understand that, I'm telling you, there's a joy. It's not from the money. There is no joy in money. There's joy in financial freedom, but when you can, it's just, there's a passion that you get for this. This is so unbelievable that people still are going into it like a 9 to 5. And I don't get it either. I'm telling you, I just can't. Yeah.
I don't get it either. It's just too easy to be able to succeed in this. And it all depends on the person if they really want it. I mean, that's the end of the day. Do you really want this, or is that 9 to 5 really that comforting that you're not willing to do anything other than that? So you're right. I mean, there's so many jewels here. I think if we keep going, you're going to give away too much, and they're not going to do any of it. So I think it's important that
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Tony Robbins, just on your point, he teaches us that. Tony Robbins teaches us that we don't get in this life what we want. We get what we can't live without. If you don't have it, you don't want it. Don't blame your mom, your dad, your coach, your teacher, your high school, whatever. I mean, it's you. If you don't have it, you don't want it bad enough. And you have to start with that in your belly first thing in the morning. If I kidnapped your children and told you the ransom was to do a deal, you'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you miss every meal and you'd borrow money and you would go out and have a question with every single person you met in the street.
You'd get a deal.
If you're not, you'd get a deal. I mean,
100%.
This is brain dead easy.
100%. You'll get a deal.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I can't wait. And I know we're doing some things together in October. You have an event in Asheville. What are the dates again?
So Asheville is the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Mm-hmm. It's open to anyone who's interested in wholesaling. It's the Wholesaling Summit 2018 is the website.
Yep.
Yeah. I always forget that.
So it's Wholesaling Summit 2018 is the website. I'm actually going to be there speaking on one of those days. I can't wait to meet everybody in your audience. And then I have an event just a weekend before. So mine is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe, or something like that. And you're coming to speak at my event so you can drop some jewels on my audience, because the things you're dropping here now is things that people need to hear. And I can't wait to come together and put this all in a big puzzle and make it look so good, because this is easy. I mean, 22 months ago I was broke. 22 months ago. And now I can essentially do anything I want to do. And it's not, and I don't make decisions based on money anymore. It's more about what I want to do it and if I want to do it, when and who I want to do it with. So if you want that, if you want that freedom, that financial freedom, or you want that opportunity to escape that 9 to 5, you really got to put your best foot forward, and you really got to put your money where your mouth is and get this done. And this is probably one of the podcasts where I've spoken the least, because I've just like, because you and I, we're not the best of friends. We speak to each other, and I get to hear. Listen, I've listened to your podcast in the past, and now I'm actually interviewing you on my podcast. So
awesome. It's
like me and you are having a one-on-one conversation, and my audience is just there, and they happen to be able to hear us because they're sitting at the table next to us. And I appreciate that, and I think that's awesome. You're saying some things, and for me, it's reiterating what I already know, but it's good to hear it again.
Right.
And it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the principles. One thing I can tell you that has been a big game changer is just reading books, and a lot of it comes from mentorship, and a lot of it comes from reading books. One of the things I find that all of my mentors do, but all of them are in the 1%. You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, guys. Don't forget that. I will tell you that I guarantee if I ask Max if he's reading a book right now, he'll tell me he is. Mm-hmm. So read every single day. If you have a difficulty reading, if some teacher or guidance counselor told you that you're an audio learner or you're a visual learner, that's all a bunch of. I'm not saying that that's not true, but that doesn't mean you can't read a book.
Yeah.
Read 8 pages a day. The only reason I got to know Robert Kiyosaki was because we were both fans of a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. So read every single day. It will change your life.
I agree. Reading changed my mind. I read this is crazy to say. I read my first book in entirety at 30 years old.
Brother, I'm with you. I did the same thing. 33. The only book I read before 33 years old. Doolittle in middle school, in my library in my middle school.
Something like that. And it's because I had a fear of reading because I'm dyslexic. So it takes me a long time to read something. So when I found audiobooks, I loved it. And then I really trained my mind to focus on reading and seeing the words not backwards and the letters not backwards. And I read more with an actual book in my hand as well. And I don't listen to music and stuff like that anymore, so I also have audio of everything that I'm trying to read as well. And if I listen to it on audio, more than likely I'll go buy it and listen to it or read it in hardback as well.
Isn't it funny how I noticed like every entrepreneur, because I had the same exact problem. I wasn't dyslexic, but I had attention deficit disorder. Every single like entrepreneur I know either has like some kind of like learning disability. It's crazy. I think that it's a huge advantage. I want all my kids to have some kind of a problem. Like, it's great. I think it's awesome.
So I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but 3 years ago I read my first book. 2 years ago I was broke. Now I'm financially independent and I don't have to, so reading is a big part. And you're right, 100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hit those books. I've got them all behind me. Those are all, they're game changers.
So those are not just empty books though. Those actually got pages in it.
Those are not. I could see some of them in the background. I see there's Rich Dad Poor Dad right there.
Love that book.
Cash Flow Quadrant. Anything by Michael Singer. Any book by Ryan Holiday. Get up and read it. If you're just starting out, the best book you could read is The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines. It's going to teach you to tithe 10%. Malachi chapter 3 verse 8. It's going to talk about how when you tithe 10% of your income, the floodgates open to a point where you can't even contain it. It absolutely works 100%. You got The Dip by Seth Godin for people who just start a new adventure. Change your whole life. Rhinoceros Success from Scott Alexander, Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, Traction from Gino Wickman, Scaling Up and Vern Harnish. I mean, these are the books. I'm
sure you got a list of your best books somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We used to on the website, and then we updated the website. I don't know if we still do, but we got to.
You should get that back because recommending books are the best. Now, tell me, before we go, I want an audience to learn a little bit more about your training program, your coaching program. And how they can check it out, how they can visit you, see if it's the right fit for them.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to tell you right now that in my trading program, it's Mr. Miyagi, Daniel-san. So if you're like a big education guy and you want to get into the minutia and the details, it's not a program for you. This is getting you out of your own way. Like I said before, we don't care what you think about wholesaling. We don't care what you want to know about wholesaling. My obligation to you when you pay me your hard-earned money is to make you money. It's called Wholesaling Inc., Wholesaling INC. Check it out. It's a great program. It's instruction over education. It's results based. We have an awesome tribe of many of our wholesalers now are millionaires, and they attend the summit. They help out in the tribe. It is what I always say is this. Don't take my word for it. If you can find another coaching program with more real life testimonials than mine, and I don't care who you look at in any space, not just wholesaling, join their program because if you go to wholesalinginc.com and you check out the reviews page, those are real testimonials from real people who are financially free by taking instruction, implementing it, getting a result, and getting education that way. I just want to say, Max, I keep saying this. I'm not against education.
Yeah.
I'm just against misplaced education.
Yeah.
I think education is great, although I didn't finish college. But besides that, I think it's awesome.
But you're about giving instruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a big difference. Because I can give you this book and say there's education in this book, but I can say, here goes this notepad. This is exactly how you're supposed to do it. There's two different things.
And here's the thing. The key with that is when you're getting started, we call it the 3 Ds. There's doubt, there's distraction, and there's disappointment. That's usually the 3 things that keep people from starting. Doubt is a big one. You have to trust the mentor. You have to trust the system. So if you say, yeah, I trust Tom, but I don't know about this whole wholesaling. Do people really sell their home for 40, 50, and 60 cents on the dollar all the time when they could just list with an agent? You have to trust the system and you have to trust yourself. The biggest doubt that most people have is actually, I'm not the right age, gender, height, weight, skill set, education level, whatever. They have self-doubt. They can do it. I think it's great, but I can't do it. So we get that right on day one. We talk about getting rid of doubt. Disappointment is going to be, a lot of people think, they'll say, oh, I'm in sales, so I'm used to getting rejection. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Not like this.
Yeah, 99.5% of the people are going to tell you, go, you know what, when you tell them what you're trying to offer for their house. And then you've got distraction. Distraction, believe it or not, is the worst one because I notice when people just get started on this journey, I think it's like God's way or the universe's way of testing their gut, their belly. They'll have some life event that pops up, like a distraction. So we kind of cut through all that fat. And I love it, brother.
I can't wait. So check it out at, is it wholesalinginc.com?
wholesalinginc.com and come and check us out and fill out an application. If we like what you have to say, we might even invite you to be a tribe member, which would be awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to leave a link in the show notes. Tom and I will come up with something special for you guys. So anybody listen to this, we'll have our own link. No, we'll put it in the show notes and we'll come up with something special.
Yeah, I want to. So we definitely, just for your audience, we already have something in the works. I just spoke to my team, so we'll definitely do that just for your audience. We're going to do something specific just for them that nobody else gets.
Perfect. Tom, I've really appreciated it. I've listened to you for a long time. Now I get to have you on my podcast. Things come in full circle, and
it's an honor.
It's awesome. I'm honored to have you, and I can't wait to actually get to meet you in person in October at my event, and then right behind it at your event in Asheville. Your event is at wholesalingsummit2018.com. Go buy tickets for that event. I'll be speaking there as well. And if you want to buy tickets to my event, it's Wholesaling Houses Elite. I can't wait. It's going to be, North Carolina is going to be full of crazy wholesalers that week. That's going to be crazy.
I know. Homeowners are going to be like putting the shutters on the windows and clocking their doors.
This is awesome, Tom. I truly enjoyed it. We'll connect very soon. And I hope everybody out there in podcast land, YouTube land had enjoyed this. And if you've listened to so far, please give us a vote, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and I'll see you guys next week at the next podcast. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Max. Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Wholesaling Houses Elite podcast with Maxwell. Make sure to tune in next week to see what elite wholesaler will have in the hot seat.